So this is a little bit of a part 2 to the last word I put out about you're leading your enemies to Jesus. So he's also saying it's not just your enemies and opposers. It's also like family members and wayward spouses and, just anyone who's been connected to you and kind of like hanging off your coat strings for however long you've been on the journey, right? And he's saying that it's because, well, in the case of the enemies, like I put out the word yesterday, they've been copying you, they've been mimicking you, right? Competing with you. So that old saying, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing, right? So it's going to get to where the wrath is so strong from God that whether they recognize that the wrath, like their hardships are from wrath from God or not, like sent from God, they are going to go to God. It's no different than with some prisoners, right? They lead this very sinful, evil life. They do a heavy duty crime. They get incarcerated for say 10, 15, 20 years, and not all, but a lot end up turning their life to God, right? And one of the reasons is because if they were kept on the streets to be able to have the freedom to do their criminal lifestyle, they probably wouldn't have made that decision. But because they were confined, imprisoned, forced to follow someone else's protocol and not their own, they felt like they had no other choice but to ultimately surrender to the Lord, right? And yeah, they may still be confined for however long their sentence may be, but at least they can spend the rest of that sentence being blessed and saved and delivered by the Lord, right? Which can ultimately lead them to make different decisions once their sentence is up and if they get back on the outside, right? Back into the free world. So he's saying it's a similar circumstance for your enemies, is that basically he's going to spiritually imprison them. Like I was describing in my word yesterday with his wrath, which comes on us in a variety of ways, right? And he's been using the plagues that I described about yesterday as a form of kind of closing the walls in on them. Now, have all prisoners given their life to the Lord? No, they haven't, but a lot have, right? And that'll be the similar circumstances that due to their competing and copying spirits, they are going to be spiritually imprisoned. They were trying to spiritually imprison you because they didn't want this outcome to happen, but it's too late. You weren't, you stuck by the Lord. You were tested and proven faithful like Job was. So therefore now you're going to be released from the prison like Joseph was, right? There's an expiration. Joseph went into the prison, but he was only there for like 2 years and then he was released, right? So it's the same thing. You may have went into a form of a spiritual imprisonment over these last couple of years, and they wanted you to stay there because as long as you're locked up and in prison, they can continue to be in the free world doing their sinful acts and sinful activities, working for Satan, right? But because you just used your time wisely in your prison to get closer to the Lord like you were supposed to, now the Lord is going to release you when your release date comes, and in turn you're going to go into the free world and the enemy is going to be imprisoned, right? You're going to switch roles. I've talked about this before in the past too, is that what goes up must come down, what goes down must come up. So the enemy was up, they're going to go down. You were down, you're going to go up. You're going to go from prison. We've heard these words, other prophets have said this, pit to palace, prison to free, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to go from your imprisonment to freedom, and the enemy is going to go from their freedom to imprisonment, and you guys are going to switch roles, okay? Sorry, just had to switch rooms. And when it comes to your family members, they are going to see the light of Jesus coming and emanating through you. And because they're going to see the light of Jesus emanating from you, it's going to change how they have perceived you and perceived the Lord, right? Because you and the Lord are one and the same now. So to see you is to see the Lord, and to see the Lord is to see you. The Lord now works in and through you, right? So people that aren't in the relationship with the Lord like you are, they see that coming off of you, and they have up until a recent point been wondering, like, what's the secret? They've actually, I'm going to be honest, they've thought that you were dabbling in dark arts and things like that to achieve, because it just doesn't make sense to them any other way, right? How could you have turned things around? How could things have done a 180, right? But they didn't realize the power of the Lord, right? And due to you're basically the guinea pig. Due to what's happened with you, the test subject with you, it's allowed them to see, what it really is. And now the Lord is revealing to them that it's been him all along, and it's always been him, and it will continue to be him. You're revealing that it's been him. So now they're aware of what the Lord can really do. And so it's kind of like they're sitting up and taking notice. Like, they're like, okay, maybe there is something here. Maybe this is genuine and real, right? So your family members, whether they had a relationship with the Lord or not prior to you coming to know the Lord, them seeing the turnaround in you and the Lord's light emanating through you is going to get their attention. It's no different than if everyone's in the desert dying of thirst and someone has the big jug of water. That's going to be their best friend. Like, they're going to be like, you have what we need. That's what I get. I want some of that. Give me some of that. I'm sitting here dying of thirst, parched. I need some of that. But that's the holy water, right? The living water, right? And so that's what they're missing, because Satan is controlling the world. You know it and I know it. So because they're of the world, they don't know what they've been missing, but they know they're missing something. And what they're missing is the light of the Lord. And they're seeing that they're in the dark. You were in the darkness. They're in the darkness. You're no longer in the darkness. So they were wondering what in the heck was causing you to be out of the darkness. And now they've come to the realization, either they have or they will in the near future, that it's the Lord's light that's been shining on you and through you. And so they're going to want some of that. So they're going to now turn over a new page when it comes to their walk with the Lord and their knowing of the Lord. So if they never knew him, they're going to come to know him. If they did know him, but they maybe have backslidden or fallen away from him, they're going to get back in relationship with him, right? And it'll be simply because, yes, it's a bit of envy, like they're envious of what you have. So it's taken their attention, right? So that envy, and God is saying initially it's going to be a worldly thing that's going to attract their attention. So if family members, people who aren't necessarily enemies, but they have a different relation to you, it'll be their envy of you that's going to at first get them to kind of, want some of what you have, right? But once they start to walk with the Lord, as we know, there's no envy, there's no pride, there's none of these things when you are in close relationship with the Lord. So as they get in close relationship with the Lord, they'll start to be more like you, and then that envy will start to dissipate, the pride will start to dissipate, right? And they'll start to see where you've been coming from. Like, you will have more of an understanding with them, and they'll have more of an understanding with you. Right now, there's no understanding because you're on the light side, on the Lord's side, and they're still on the dark side, on Satan's side, right? And as we know, there's always a battle there. When it comes to your enemies, it comes from envy and pride as well. It'll also be that spirit in them that will get them to sit up and take notice. But because Satan has had them competing and copying you, I've made other words about this in the past too, but God's basically going to say, okay, you want to copy them so bad, you want to compete with them so bad. Well, the only way that you can copy them and compete with them and trump them is if you're to go to the Lord too, right? That's the only way that you're going to meet their match, right? Because as long in the past, when you were still in the dark and they were in the dark, they could always use that against you. Like, oh, well, I may do this sin, but you do this sin. So therefore, I'm still better than you, or you're lesser than me because I'm a sinner and you're a sinner. So therefore, you're not better than me. Like, I'm just saying, like, this is the attitude. This isn't me. This is their attitude towards you. This is how they think and speak in regards to you. Okay. But once they see that over time and time again of them spying on you, testing you, surveying you, whatever, they're going to see that you no longer do those things. Like, so they're going to see, well, gee, I've used up all of the the plays that I had. The only play that's left is that they must work for the Lord and represent the Lord. So the only way that I could go tit for tat with them or toe to toe with them and match them and get on their level, because there's going to be such a divide between you and them with this elevation, is if I too go to the Lord. Otherwise, it's going to so it's so crystal clear that you're the quote unquote winner, that, you've beat them at the competition or whatever that they created. So that's causing envy and pride within them because of Satan's spirit, right? So they want so bad to try to trump you like they have in the past, but they cannot, because in the past they may have been on level 2 and you were on level 4. Well, there was only a 2 level difference there. Then they got on level 4 and you were on level 6. Well, there was only a 2 level difference there. Then you got on level 8, they got on level 6. But as you've been elevating and saying more bye-bye to Satan and graduating, moving ahead, it's went from where once upon a time you were level 8 and they were level 6. Now you're on level 25 and they're on level 9. So the divide has just grown so much, right? That they used to feel like they could maybe one up you eventually, right? But now they've realized it's impossible. So God is saying, hey, the days of the competition are coming to an end, because you can continue to try in your Satan spirit to compete with them and copy them, but it's going to become so obvious that they're who they are and you're who you are, that the little leverage they once had, they no longer will have that no longer, right? Or if you want to continue to compete and copy with them, then your next step is you're going to have to make a giant leap towards the Lord, right? And make one leap once and for all. Not a tiny leap, not a baby leap, but an actual leap of faith, right? Towards the Lord. And that's the only way that you will ever come close to their level, because they are so far removed from Satan and so on my side that it's became very glaringly obvious who works for who, right? So the only way that they can grasp at your coattails is to go towards the Lord and go wholeheartedly, right? And like I said, my last word, if they go towards the Lord wholeheartedly, and they actually truly give their heart to Jesus and they become saved and delivered, they will no longer compete with you regardless, because if you truly walk with the Lord, you don't have a competing, copying spirit in you, right? So then obviously the competition, the copying comes to an end, because you're working for the Lord, they're working for the Lord. You've both said bye to Satan. Now there's no longer a competition, right? Or their other option is they don't have to compete and copy you all the way to jump to the Lord. But if they continue to work for Satan and try to copy and compete with you, not only are they going to be under God's wrath for doing so, and the hardship will continue and get worse, but it'll become so glaringly obvious that they are who they are and you're who you are, right? So they either continue to compete and copy and they're going to lose, and it's going to be publicly known, widely known to outsiders that they've lost, and to themselves and to you, right? The only way that they can ultimately quote unquote win is if they go towards the Lord like you have. But if they go towards the Lord, then you still win, because no longer are they competing and copying you. So that's came to an end. But now they actually have you to kind of thank in a roundabout way for leading them towards the Lord, right? And in all circumstances, God gets the glory, because if the enemy chooses to stay in Satan's spirit, competing and copying with you, you're still sitting there glorifying God, and they are going to literally see the glory of God on you. So whether they want to come to God or not is irrelevant. God's still getting his glory out of it, right? And if they make the wiser decision to go towards the Lord, and perhaps what'll get them going started is that envy and pride, I just gotta get them, I gotta go tit for tat with them and toe for toe. I don't know any other way. Then the only way that they can meet your next match your next move is if they go towards the Lord wholeheartedly, not here or there, but wholeheartedly, right? Because that's where the Lord has placed you. And if they do that, then God gets the glory, not only from the outsider perspective again, which will, like I said in my last word, cause them to come towards the Lord too, because those outsiders are going to say, well, not only did they do it for this person, but now they've done it for their enemy. There must be something here, right? Which is ultimately, of course, God's plan and what he wants. But you and that enemy are now going to be glorifying the Lord, right? So God's like, this is rigged in your favor, because it doesn't really matter what the enemy says, does, or whatever. At the end of the day, you are in your position and God is going to get the glory, whether it's from both of you or just you. But the outsiders are going to see it with either just you or both of you. Either way, it doesn't matter, right? God would prefer to save your enemy and to save those that could come after them. And if that's within his will, that's what he will do. And he's telling me that that ultimately is what's going to happen, right? Now, of course, it took time for you to get saved. It's going to take time for the enemies to get saved as well, because they have to atone for the things that they've done. Then it would also take time for those outsiders to get saved as well, right? But it's a domino effect. So yeah, this is just clarifying more of what my last word was, because it was a little bit short there, but the Lord gave me more details, as he's just saying that so the enemy is going to come to a crossroads. He's telling me they already have. They've matched your move in their mind. They haven't, but in their mind, they've matched your moves all along this way. But it's getting to where, the Lord has elevated you so high. Like I said, you're on level 25, they're on level 8, that the only way they can jump those 17 spots is if they go to the Lord, right? Or is that right? 17 spots? Yeah, I think so. Sorry. Those 17 spots is if they go towards the Lord. And if they choose not to, they have free will, of course, but the days of them competing and copying you just on and on for weeks on end is coming to an end, because they're not going to be able to match this next move. And if they choose to match this next move, it requires them saying bye-bye to Satan, giving up the sins, repenting, and basically confessing to the Lord and bowing their knee down to the Lord, like the scripture says, becoming saved, at which point in time they're going to look back with their Jesus eyes instead of their Satan eyes and see things for how they really were all along, right? And they will see that thanks to you picking up your cross and coming to know Jesus, it basically, they followed your breadcrumbs all the way to Jesus themselves, right? So then you're happy because you've been saved by the Lord, which is a gift in and of itself. But then now the competing copying spirit has come to an end, and you were able to save your enemy as well, right? Which, like I said in the last word, is what we're supposed to do as Christians and followers of the Lord, right? So I hope this makes more sense. So like I was saying, and this isn't going to be for everyone. This isn't going to be for all your enemies, all your family members, all the people attached and associated to you. Unfortunately, there is going to be some that are, they're still going to choose the dark side, right? And we have to pray for them. That's our duty as well, right? But some people think that the goal that the Lord had during this time was just to try to knock you down to your knees and take everything from you and strip you down and break you down. And I mean, I'm not going to front it. Yes, that's basically what the Lord did do. However, it served a purpose. It made you a better person, and it's going to allow your enemies to become better people too, right? Which you should ultimately want as a true follower of Jesus, right? Is for everyone to be saved. So I hope this helps you. I hope you find it encouraging. I know I did when I got this download today. It was amazing, and God bless.